on his last book tour, he made several stops in Oregon. On this book tour, he's only stopping in Roseburg. We were one of his biggest turnouts on his whole tour for his book around the country. So we have a very special thing going on here. We have a big audience for this topic of lifestyle medicine. We have a big fan base for Dr. Michael Greger himself.
Good evening. The first formal program that UC VEG actually did was way back in 2011. I was talking with my friend Bill recently about it. He actually happened to be one of the main organizers for it, and I asked him what this first program was like in 2011, and he told me it was a very interesting and fascinating presentation about alkaline foods and pH balance. And I asked him how many people came, and he said no one. It was just us, the people organizing it. And I thought, wow, we've come a long way. So that was the first formal program that UC VEG had, and this is the latest program that UC VEG has had and is hosting, and a lot has changed. How many people were at the Dr. Greger program here 4 years ago? Quite a few folks, right? Yes. So much has happened since then. How Not to Die was his book. Yes, somebody who's succeeded in the goal of that book. Actually, if you're all here, in a way, even if you didn't read it, you've succeeded in accomplishing the goal of that book. Congratulations. But it is a great question, how did we get here? How did small town Roseburg get here? And we're going to explore that a little bit later. Our two main lead organizations that have helped put this program on are Thrive Umpqua and UC VEG. And I hope you'll indulge us a bit in allowing us to spend a bit more time sharing with you more about those organizations.
Thrive Umpqua is continuing the transformative work of Blue Zones Project in the Umpqua Valley and making healthy choices easier for all in the places we spend the most time. Now, as a certified Blue Zones community, people are connecting with a new sense of purpose. We're safely going places in a more active way and able to do more of the things we love. We're serving together with increased volunteerism and social connection and making opportunities to unwind. We're growing fruits and vegetables in new spaces and discovering healthier food options at work, schools, restaurants, and grocery stores. As a partnership of change makers, we're creating a sense of belonging in our neighborhoods. And it's all linked to rising well-being and creating a community where everyone can thrive.
I noticed myself doing more and socializing more and putting myself out there more and eating healthier and doing these crazy things that are just, they weren't me before I met you guys. And I'm really coming into my own. Like, I feel like my own person. Life's lit up. I cry a little less and I laugh a little more. And it's very helpful, and I appreciate you guys for it.
Together, we are Thrive Umpqua. Follow along on social media and be part of our community's well-being initiative.
When our community's leaders came together in search of something positive, united around a shared objective to improve our community well-being here in the Umpqua Valley comprehensively, and selected Blue Zones Project, an effective model that had already been proven across the country, it felt like nothing short of a miracle. How many of you have seen on Netflix Living to Be 100, the Blue Zone series? A lot of you. Okay, so this is about the blue zones, the places around the world where people are living the longest, healthiest lives, where they have the highest concentration of centenarians. And that's part of our story right here in the Umpqua Valley. It's helping us to realize this vision of comprehensive well-being transformation right here for ourselves, for our families, in our community, for our neighbors, for future generations. And you being here tonight are all a part of that. Yeah. Thank you for being a part of our community's well-being initiative. Over the last 7 years, our community has come together and shifted toward creating a culture of well-being. Our well-being index score and our community health rankings at a time where rural communities like ours are on a decline are not just holding steady, but are improving, reversing a downward trend. Over 20% of our community's population have invested or personally engaged with our community's well-being initiative. We've brought millions of dollars into our community for events and activities and infrastructure. And in 2021, our community received the national designation of becoming a certified Blue Zones community. Now, as Thrive Umpqua, the work continues as a community collaborative to make the healthy choice the easy choice and bring us together so we can work together to create a thriving community. And to make this easy and fun and accessible to all of you, we brought events and activities from across the community into our well-being challenge. How many of you had the opportunity to participate in the Community Well-Being Challenge in 2023? Some of you, not enough of you. Well, here is your opportunity to register. So I'm going to invite you to take your cell phones out.
So I mentioned a little bit about UC VEG's first program back in 2011. A lot's changed since then. Things moved really quickly for our local initiative around nutrition and lifestyle medicine. Soon, there were lots of people coming to events. There were potlucks, there were cooking classes, there were panels and lectures. There were even grocery shopping tours that started. More and more people became interested in Douglas County in this phenomenon. But back in the 1990s, believe it or not, there were groups that were meeting around plant-based potlucks and plant-based nutrition. And there was even a group that did a study in Roseburg, a partnership of Paul Fieber and Victoria Botenko, about utilizing healthy smoothies to reverse chronic illness. In 2009, a few of my friends got together and started re-enlivening the idea of getting together in groups and exploring healthy recipes. But it was really in 2011 when we formally took off as an organization. After all these events started taking place, we realized we didn't really have in Douglas County anyone who was certified or trained in lifestyle medicine. So we had to look outside of the county, and we looked to the bigger cities in Oregon, like Medford, and we invited Dr. Saeed, Dr. Payton, and Dr. Donato to come and give free lectures on lifestyle medicine in downtown Roseburg. And we gave them stipends, paying for their gas so they could feel like traveling the distance. In 2012, we invited Dr. Will Tuttle, best-selling author of The World Peace Diet, to come and speak. And we realized that there was this momentum building as more and more people became involved. 2014, UC VEG was actually invited to host lifestyle medicine classes and healthy food demos at a small clinic in Sutherland, then known as UCHC. Every 2 months, a free program would take place for the public where people could learn about this topic and also the practical tips of trying different foods. Around that same time, an influential administrator in Douglas County arranged for UC VEG to give nutritional training to young families that were participating in the local Head Start program. And it was then, in 2014, that we first had Dr. Michael Greger speak live here in Douglas County. Believe it or not, he spoke in the Holiday Inn to a packed banquet hall. while running on his treadmill, or actually walking on his treadmill. Yes, can you imagine that? Live, giving a lecture, walking on his treadmill. Of course, that was virtually over Skype. During these years, there was a lot of research going on by a lot of individuals looking at what can we do to understand health better. Years before that, I think it was probably in 2011, someone was asking me about vitamin B12 levels. And I started researching on the internet, scouring through posts, websites, and curious where after a while, my answer was presented to me in the form of a short little video. And you can imagine, if you've ever looked at any of those videos on nutritionfacts.org, how extremely dense and powerful they are with information. And so with that, we started sharing and exposing the community to Dr. Greger's videos and his work. But back in 2015, there was a partnership between UC VEG and PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, to host a series of lifestyle medicine and nutrition classes in ROSEBURG. Every week, participants could come, learn about the health benefits of a nutrient-dense diet, and then get to try practical recipes. We were lucky enough that several medical providers in our local area attended that, and that became a pivotal change for them, and it transformed the trajectory of how they administered medicine in the local area. Today, UC VEG does a number of programs on a weekly or at least a monthly basis and has over 80 local medical providers that refer their patients to its programs. It is not possible to thank everyone who made this all happen. So many people over the years have done so much. Thousands of people have participated. Hundreds of people have volunteered. And there's been dozens of local medical providers who have given of their time and energy and their expertise to help make this happen. And I'm literally not just saying that because I don't want anybody to get upset that they didn't get acknowledged. I really mean it. There have been so many people involved. But we really do want to take a special opportunity to acknowledge some folks. All the people who have volunteered. If you have volunteered on any of these activities or programs in the past, or you are involved in tonight's event, congratulations. Thank you for your efforts. You really did a great job. But having said that, we do want to make a special acknowledgement to a certain set of professionals who actually not just gave their time to the community, but specifically worked to support UC VEG in organizing around lifestyle medicine in Douglas County. They risked their professional careers by speaking out. They spent their time volunteering, and we definitely want to acknowledge them now for the great contribution they made to our community. Dr. Charlie Ross, Dr. Heidi Berry, Dr. Terry Lundy, Dr. April Gilliam, and Dr. Mark Silver. People like Charlie Ross, who first started volunteering for UC VEG programs going back at least 10 years ago, said, "I can do this," and soon started trying to influence his medical colleagues to pay attention and learn more about lifestyle medicine. After collaborating on free classes with UC VEG, Charlie went on to teach the Seventh-day Adventist CHIP program locally, evolving that into his own branded TIP classes. A partnership continued till eventually Charlie moved from Douglas County, handing that organization of programs over to UC VEG to continue hosting locally. But before that happened, several other medical professionals started to stand up, including a UCC nursing instructor, Patrick Harris, as well as a local family medicine doctor by the name of Heidi Berry. Dr. Heidi Berry continued to teach the TIP classes and now volunteers her time as a lead facilitator for what is now known as the Lifestyle and Nutrition course. Dr. Heidi Berry also deserves applause for being one of the champions to bring a residency program here to ROSEBURG. That includes a lifestyle medicine track that allows residents to get certified in lifestyle medicine. All the residents are expected to take at least one round of UC VEG's lifestyle nutrition course to ensure that the family physicians who graduate are well versed in the topic being presented here tonight. So UC VEG is all about sharing and growing, helping us have reliable, valuable health information that perhaps we weren't exposed to earlier in our lives. That's one of the reasons that we like to work with Dr. Greger, and that there is information all around us, but sometimes it's difficult to know what to trust. The idea of having evidence-based research that has no catches, no business, no manipulation behind it, it is a great privilege and something we should cherish and hold in extreme value. It's all about learning and growing. And so with that, I want us to give a warm Oregon welcome. Dr. Michael Greger.
All right, how's that sound? The cheap seats in the back? Good, excellent. Yeah, because the single greatest risk factor for most of our killer diseases is how old you are. One could argue that the leading cause of death is actually aging. The rate of death increases exponentially for age-related diseases such as heart disease, cancer, stroke, and dementia. I don't know why that's so funny. People always laugh at that. It's like, these are horrible diseases getting worse and worse as we age. I don't know. So yes, within the same age bracket, having high cholesterol can increase your risk of heart disease as much as 20-fold, but an 80-year-old may have 500 times the risk of having a heart attack compared to a 20-year-old. Now, of course, the reason we focus on things like cholesterol is because it's a modifiable risk factor, but what if the rate of aging were modifiable too? My inspiration for writing How Not to Age was this consensus document compiled by the top researchers in the field to identify the most promising strategies to combat aging. They identified a list of essential pathways, for example, drugs that can block the hormone IGF-1 or drugs to block the pro-aging enzyme TOR. But I realized, wait a second, every single one of these pathways could be modulated through diet. That became the opening section of the book. For example, boosting something called autophagy. At any given time, most of our cells are assembling and producing about 10,000 distinct proteins, each of which can become malformed or damaged at any time, require a cleanup on aisle 3. That's where autophagy comes in, from the Greek words for self-eating. It's a housekeeping process by which defective cellular components are broken down for spare parts. It doubles as both salvage operation and quality control, renewing our cells in a sort of cellular reset. As one review put it, the janitor is the undercover boss. Self-digestion for lifespan extension. Enhanced autophagy can delay aging. Unfortunately, our ability to take out the trash declines with age. The drug industry is eager to pharmacologically modulate autophagy to combat aging, but we can do it naturally. One way is through fasting, though unfortunately autophagy doesn't really ramp up until after a day or two of fasting, which may be too long to go unsupervised. Thankfully, there's another way to activate autophagy. You can fast or go fast. Exercise induces autophagy. As one of the researchers said, I've always known exercise was good for you, but when we found out it increases autophagy, I finally got a treadmill. You have to do it enough, though. Autophagy is activated after 60 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, such as brisk walking, but 20 minutes fails to move the needle. What about diet? Any foods to avoid? Acrylamide can inhibit autophagy. Acrylamide is a toxin found concentrated in French fries and potato chips. I heard that. It's formed during the frying process. The fact that high acrylamide exposure is associated with as much as double the risk of premature death would be consistent with an anti-aging effect, though, shortened lifespans among eaters of fatty, salty snacks isn't exactly a revelation. You don't know if it's cause and effect until you put it to the very nice. Before being asked to eat a bag of potato chips every day for a month, study subjects were given weeks of boiled potatoes with the same amount of fat and salt as the chips. Compared with the fatty, salty, boiled potatoes, their C-reactive protein levels shot up 50% on the chips, suggesting chronic ingestion of acrylamide-containing products induces a pro-inflammatory state. But deep frying causes the formation of all manner of undesirable foodborne toxicants, so we can't be sure it was the acrylamide. As one of the early geriatric medicine textbooks put it in 1849, frying is an abomination. If you just must have your French fry fix, air frying produces 90% less acrylamide. Anything that can help? Well, starving yourself generates discomfort. But there is something that activates autophagy that many people find comforting. Coffee. About 20 studies involved more than 10 million participants over time, and those drinking 3 cups of coffee a day had 13% lower risk of dying from all causes put together. And decaf appears to be just as protective, so it's not the caffeine, but rather the chlorogenic acid, the primary antioxidant in coffee found to enhance autophagy in human cells. More than 100 different types of coffee have been tested, and actually chlorogenic acid levels vary by more than 30-fold. The major contributor to this wide range was Starbucks, with its extremely low antioxidant content, thought to be because they roast their beans so dark that they destroy it. Instant coffee seems fine from an autophagy activating standpoint, and brewed actually has more than espresso. Paper filtered is the best because it traps the cholesterol-raising compounds in coffee, perhaps explaining why those drinking filtered coffee live even longer than those drinking unfiltered coffee, but they both live longer than those not drinking coffee at all. Any food components that activate autophagy? Spermidine. The longevity elixir? Spermidine. Don't be put off by the name. When it was later, it's found throughout the body. When it was later discovered in the muscles and brain, they called it musculamine and neurodine until they realized, it's all the same compound. And so naming rights defaulted to the less palatable original. Our body can make it from scratch, but we can also boost levels by eating spermidine-rich foods, which is good news because our spermidine levels tend to decline with age, dropping by as much as half by the time we reach our 50s. This decline is seen across the biological spectrum with one remarkable exception. Naked mole rats, also known by their more cuddly nickname, sand puppy, considered to be a non-aging mammal, thanks in part to their having these high levels of spermidine into old age, something you also see in human centenarians. Hundreds of men and women in their 40s to 80s were followed for decades, and after looking at 146 compounds in their diet, the single most predictive of longevity was spermidine. Higher spermidine intake is linked to lower mortality. Those who consumed the most spermidine had lower risk of death from all major causes, which is what you'd expect from an anti-aging compound. To prove cause and effect, extra spermidine was fed to animals, and induction of autophagy by spermidine promotes longevity, increasing the lifespans of mice, for example, by as much as 25%. In a database of more than 1,000 life-extending compounds, among the few with the fewest side effects, spermidine has the largest documented lifespan extension of any compound. This led some to propose that spermidine may be an anti-aging vitamin. When we're young, we may be able to make all we need. But as we get older, we may need to start ensuring we're getting it in our diet enough to promote autophagy, maintain autophagy into old age. Well, if spermidine is an anti-aging vitamin, where is that vitamin found? Beans. Only in Roseburg would I get applause for beans. Beans are said to have the highest natural amount of fermented whole soy food called tempeh. Actually, there we go, beans. Fermented whole soy food called tempeh actually leads the list, followed by plain white button mushrooms, though pig pancreas does take the bronze. The single most concentrated source is wheat germ. Since the serving size is just a tablespoon, it's also the cheapest source, costing as little as 2 cents per milligram. You can't get a lot of pancreas for 2 cents these days. Does wheat germ actually do anything, though? Let's randomize people to some dinner rolls and find out. A randomized double-blind pilot in which older individuals were secretly slipped some spermidine in the form of wheat rolls baked with wheat germ versus placebo rolls with wheat bran instead, and those with mild dementia improved way beyond all available anti-dementia drug treatments so far. Admittedly, that's not saying very much, but, for example, the latest Alzheimer's drugs don't appear to work at all. All you get for your $56,000 is swelling or bleeding into your brain, a dramatically increased risk. When the FDA approved it anyway, the head of the American Geriatric Society replied, "My head just exploded." To wrap up this section, autophagy is considered the primary system for cleaning the body from the inside out, and we can boost autophagy with aerobic exercise, skipping the fries and chips, and drinking coffee and eating specific foods to reach a target of a minimum of 20 milligrams of spermidine a day. I offer similar diet and lifestyle takeaways for each of the other 10 anti-aging pathways, but also want to have time to touch on 3 other major sections of the book. For example, part 2 focuses on the diets and lifestyles of the healthiest and longest lived populations around the world. Studies following identical twins suggest only about 25% of the difference in lifespan between individuals may be due to genetics. So what can we do over the majority of which we may have some control? Well, the media loves stories about hard-living centenarians who attribute their longevity to some combination of lard vodka and favorite brand of cigarette. But how do the oldest and healthiest really eat and live? Well, that's what we have the blue zones for, areas of exceptional longevity around the world where they may have up to 10 times the rate of those reaching triple digits. What lessons can we learn? Well, the Blue Zones organization distilled findings from more than 150 dietary surveys from the world's longest living people to create a set of 10 food guidelines. The foundation of the Blue Zones food guidelines is to eat at least 95% plant-based. Avoiding highly processed foods, emphasizing beans as the healthiest source of protein, water as the best beverage, and nuts as the healthiest snack. That's the foundation. The final 5 guidelines are go easy on fish, eliminate eggs, /sugar, and reduce dairy, retreat from meat. Now, there are a number of shared Blue Zone lifestyle characteristics, avoiding smoking, daily exercise, but plant-based nutrition appears to be the principal component. No surprise, since the number 1 risk factor for death in these United States is the American diet. Unsafe sex is bad. A sedentary lifestyle, bad. Alcohol and drugs, especially tobacco, bad. But cigarettes only kill about 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills many more. Can you even see? You can't even see the dietary. The diet goes way out here. We are what we eat, which is good news because it means we have the power. Changing from a typical diet to a better diet is expected to increase the lifespan of women by about 11 years, men by 13 years. The largest life expectancy gains would be made by eating more legumes. In other words, more beans, chickpeas, split peas, and lentils. In other words, if there's one thing we could do for our health, for our longevity, it would be legumes for longevity. Hummus for health. And then comes whole grains and nuts, and then eating less meat. And it doesn't take much. The NIH AARP study, the largest study of diet and health in history, based on the 6 million person years of observation, replacing just 3% of daily caloric intake from animal protein with plant protein, associated with a 10% decreased risk of overall mortality. Just swapping 3%. Of all the animal protein sources, eggs were found to be the worst. Swapping in 3% of plant protein for egg protein was associated with twice the benefit, 20% lower mortality, having scrambled tofu instead. But does eating healthier actually slow down aging? Well, adopting a plant-based dietary pattern, especially when rich in healthful plant foods, was associated with a substantially lowered pace of aging. All we need now is an interventional trial to prove cause and effect. And here we go. Randomize hundreds to a diet centered around whole plant foods, or to exercise, or to neither. And sadly, the physical activity alone failed to slow the rate of aging. But those in the plant-based dietary intervention group experienced a significant slowing of biological aging. Of course, it's not just about adding years to your life, but life to your years. An unhealthy aging index was devised to measure functional impairments, vitality, mental health, not just physical health, substituting even just 1% of plant protein for animal protein appeared to lead to significantly less deficit accumulation, and substituting 5% may reduce your risk of dying from the greatest deficit of all, dementia. That may help explain why those who don't eat any meat at all may be up to 3 times less likely to become demented later in life. Again, it's not all or nothing. In fact, the worst thing about humanity's diet is neither animal nor vegetable, but mineral. Sodium. Here are the top 5 fatal flaws in our diet. And yes, millions may die every year from not eating enough whole grains, not enough fruit, nuts and seeds, vegetables. But the single deadliest ingredient in humanity's diet is something we get too much of: salt, our number 1 dietary risk factor for death. How do we know its cause and effect? 5 kitchens at a veteran's retirement home were randomized into 2 groups for a few years, offering meals salted either with regular salt or, unbeknownst to them, a 50-50 blend of regular salt, sodium chloride, with a salt substitute like these, potassium chloride. The kind of salt was the only difference between the 2 groups, and cardiovascular disease death rates plummeted 40% in those getting the reduced sodium blend. The new difference in life expectancy between the 2 groups at age 70 was equivalent to that which would have occurred naturally in 14 years. Meaning that even just switching to half potassium salt, for which you wouldn't even be able to taste a difference, effectively made them more than a decade younger when it came to the risk of dying prematurely. What do the likes of the Salt Institute have to say about recommendations to reduce sodium intake? Well, the presumption that healthier diets would cut healthcare costs was challenged. Indeed, healthcare expenditures increase if lifespan is prolonged. If people eat healthier, live longer, it could be more expensive. Noting that if tobacco were banned, the increase in expected lifespan would increase the cost of care of old people. Think how expensive it would be if people started taking better care of themselves and didn't conveniently die on time. Ultra-processed foods, often packed with added salt, sugar, and fat, consistently account for more than 50% of our dietary intake, meaning most of our diet is junk. Not surprisingly, these foods are associated with a greater risk of dying prematurely, so just cutting back on animal foods is not enough. Healthy plant-based diets are associated with significantly lower risk of dying, but unhealthy plant-based diets are not. In the Harvard cohorts, the more you minimize meat, eggs, and dairy, the longer you live, the lower your risk of premature death. But only if you're eating healthy plant foods. If instead you just pile on the junk like fries and a Coke, you can increase your risk of dying overall, even if animal product consumption remains low. Same in the Million Veteran Program study. Healthy plant foods reduce their risk of death, but if your idea of a plant-based diet is a vegan donut, you're not doing your body any favors. Same with the risk of cognitive impairment. Only healthy plant-based diets reduce risk. The same with dementia and depression. The same with frailty. Healthy plant-based foods good, plant-based junk bad. And the same with aging. The more people cut down on meat, dairy, and eggs, the slower they appear to age. But that's only if you replace them with healthy plant foods. Pile on the junk and you can accelerate aging. That's why Cornell Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, coined this term, whole food plant-based nutrition. Right? As a physician, terms like vegetarian, vegan, that just tells me what you don't eat. I mean, do you actually eat vegetables? Professor Campbell's physician's son and daughter-in-law tried putting a group of vegetarians and vegans on a whole food plant-based diet. In 8 weeks, they lost 10 pounds, dropped their LDL cholesterol 15 points. In other words, vegans may benefit from eating a little more plant-based too. Now, meat is a problem in terms of lifespan. Eating a burger may cut one's life as short as smoking 2 cigarettes. So if it wouldn't even occur to you to light up before and after lunch, maybe you should choose the bean burrito instead. What about fish? Unfortunately, our oceans have become humanity's sewer. Everything eventually flows into the sea, so the consumption of contaminated seafood has become the main route of human exposure to chemical pollutants. Yes, a variety of different foods are affected, but the number one source of DDT? Fish. Number one source of PCBs? Fish. Salmon is the worst when it comes to PCBs, followed by canned tuna. Salmon also has the highest levels of dioxin-like compounds, right? So, on the one hand, fish has long been viewed as a healthy dietary component because of those long-chain omega-3s. But on the other hand, we have so polluted our world that we're now seeing heavy metals, pesticides, flame retardants, forever chemicals in fish, which may explain why, despite their omega-3s, there's been a failure to consistently observe beneficial effects of fish consumption. So look, maybe if we had a time machine to go back before the Industrial Revolution, but now we have studies like this, where mice fed farmed salmon fillets with common levels of persistent organic pollutants were found to develop insulin resistance, glucose intolerance, abdominal obesity, fatty liver, chronic low-grade inflammation. So even, just like the background levels of pollutants that might be presumed to be safe, could completely counteract the potential benefits of the omega-3s, and in particular leading to these serious metabolic issues. Now for mercury, it's really more about brain function. Hundreds of thousands of babies born with brain damage every year in the United States as a consequence of their mothers consuming mercury-contaminated seafood during pregnancy, with the resulting loss of intelligence estimated to cost our nation billions of dollars of lost productivity. In the aging literature, there are cases like this: a man with years of progressive memory loss tentatively diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. His friends and family assumed he was nearing the end of his life. But a detailed history revealed that he had consumed swordfish once or twice a week. When the fish was removed from his diet, his mercury levels fell, and his memory bounced back. No more dementia. Right? So it seems he didn't have Alzheimer's after all, but rather mercury poisoning from just a handful of monthly meals of contaminated fish. You see the same kind of remarkable reversals with hair loss. Here's a common story. Perimenopausal woman seeks help for hair loss. Blood tests show elevated mercury levels. No wonder. She had a diet high in tuna. But within 2 months of stopping fish, her hair started to grow back, and eventually her hair regrew completely. So, doctors should consider screening for mercury toxicity when they see hair loss, since, look, there's something we can do about it. Instructing patients to reduce fish intake could offer relief of symptoms and uncover dietary habits that may be a source of heavy metal-induced hair loss. Though, admittedly, sometimes heavy metal can lead to too much hair. Sorry. Happy to cover other foods and beverages in the Q&A, like what about red wine or green tea or whatever, but let's move on to part 3. What can we do to preserve our bones, bowels, bladder, and circulation, our hair, hearing, and hormone balance, our immune function, joint health, our minds and our muscles, sex life and skin, our teeth, vision, and finally, our dignity in death, which I talk about Oregon a lot, actually, interestingly. For example, did you know that 85% of age-related bone fracture risk has nothing to do with bone mineral density? That's just been, drilled into our heads by Big Pharma and $1 billion screening industry. Fractures are primarily due to falling, not osteoporosis. So it's the age-related muscle loss and impaired balance that may be breaking up most of our bones, which is good news, because there's something we can do about it. 7 randomized controlled trials found that strength and balance training can cut fracture rates nearly in half, and that's just during the trial. In the 5 years after this 1-year study ended, those who had previously been randomized to the combined strength and balance group suffered 74% fewer fractures. That's far more effective than osteoporosis drugs like Fosamax that can cause fractures, atypical femoral fractures, as many as 1 in 300 users. We call them, atypical because they occur not after a fall or trauma, but just during routine activities like walking or standing still, twisting at the waist. Thanks to the drug, your femur, your thigh bone, the biggest bone in your body, just snaps in half. Too cruel an irony from a drug that's supposed to protect your bones. This is what it looks like on X-ray. Ouch. See that? After bones, I talk about preserving your bowel function in chapter number 2. Randomized constipated diabetics to either cookies containing a tablespoon a day of ground flax seeds or flax-free placebo cookies for 12 weeks. And not only does the flax improve constipation symptoms, but resulted in an 8-pound weight loss over placebo, 25-point lower blood sugars, an astounding drop in hemoglobin A1C, and a 17-point lower LDL cholesterol, all for about 10 cents a day of ground flax seeds. For a head-to-head test between flaxseed and psyllium, or sold as Metamucil, a third cookie group was added, and the flaxseed beat out the psyllium for constipation relief, weight, blood sugars, and cholesterol, and is about 4 times cheaper. Flax seeds were also directly compared to the prescription laxative lactulose and worked even better. Bladder function. The prevalence of overactive bladder syndrome increases with age, reaching about 1 in 3. No wonder. Bladder-relaxing drugs are a multi-billion-dollar industry, yet may only reduce bathroom breaks compared to placebo by a half a pee a day. But a quarter teaspoon a day of dried cranberry powder worked nearly 4 times better, nearly 2 fewer daily trips to the bathroom over placebo, and that's without the drug side effects. Problems with dry mouth, constipation, sedation, cognition, retention, vision, leading almost 2/3 to stop taking these drugs, whereas cranberries are just tangy. Urinary incontinence is a common problem among older adults, particularly women thanks to childbirth. Systemic menopausal hormone therapy like Premarin actually makes it worse, though local vaginal estrogen may help. But what works 5 times better than estrogen cream, though? Kegel exercises, pelvic floor exercises, as I detail in the section. For men, urinary issues are more an enlarged prostate problem, having to get up multiple times, wee hours of the night. Cranberries to the rescue again. Even just 1/8 of a teaspoon a day of powdered cranberries can significantly improve prostate symptoms. You can buy cranberry powder in bulk at a cost of less than a penny per day. No wonder we've never heard about this research, because there's no money to be made. What about saw palmetto, the most common herbal supplement used for prostate symptoms? Based on dozens of randomized controlled trials involving nearly 5,000 men, no clinical benefits. But pumpkin seeds work. More than 1,000 men with prostate symptoms were randomized to either about a tablespoon a day of plain, pumpkin seed kernels, or a proprietary pumpkin seed extract supplement, or placebo. And the study was actually funded by the drug company that made the fancy supplement, but the supplement totally flopped, whereas the pumpkin seeds themselves actually worked. Pumpkin seed oil was pitted against the leading drug for hair loss in women, a little less than a quarter teaspoon applied to the scalp once a day versus a dose of the drug, and they both worked, but the drug did work better, but rosemary oil, however, may be more closely matched. 100 balding men were randomized to twice-a-day minoxidil, like Rogaine, versus a rosemary lotion. Significant comparable improvements in hair counts in both groups. The rosemary lotion appeared to work just as well as the drug. I wish I would have known about this. If you want to give it a DIY try, you can premix about 10 drops of rosemary essential oil to each fluid ounce of your favorite lotion and rub a quarter teaspoon in your scalp twice a day. Cost-wise, that much rosemary oil would come out to be about a penny per week. No wonder I never heard about it. Let's move from hair highlights to hormones. I touched on how menopausal hormone therapy can actually make urinary incontinence worse, but that's not all. If 1,000 postmenopausal women take the standard hormone regimen for 10 years, you not only expect 876 extra cases of urinary incontinence that they wouldn't have had otherwise, but 9 more cases of invasive breast cancer, 8 more cases of heart disease, probably 22 more cases of dementia, 21 more cases of gallbladder disease, 9 more strokes, and 21 more blood clots, though not a single partridge nor pear tree. However, hormone therapy is highly effective in reducing menopausal hot flash symptoms. Is there any way to keep cool without the clots and cancer? In the U.S., menopausal hot flashes are considered just inevitable, but there isn't even a word for hot flash in the Japanese language. This may be due to their greater consumption of soy foods, but you don't really know until You put it to the test. Harvard funded a randomized crossover trial of a half a cup of unsalted soy nuts a day and achieved, compared to the control group, within 2 weeks, a 40 to 45% reduction in hot flashes. Given that a plant-based diet may also be helpful for managing menopausal symptoms, researchers decided to combine the two, a plant-based diet and whole soybeans. In fact, 2 randomized controlled trials found that plant-based nutrition with a daily half cup of whole soybeans, like out of a can, can reduce the number of serious hot flashes by 84 to 88%. Overall, most randomized, the plant-based bean group ended up free of moderate to severe hot flashes compared to about 95% still suffering in the control group. Lots of other things can help. Whole fennel seeds powdered into capsules to pit them against placebo in a double-blind trial significantly improve menopausal symptoms at a dose of a teaspoon a day. Fenugreek may also help at a dose of a teaspoon and a half, though not as much as hormones, but hey, without the side effects. Though fenugreek may make your pee smell like maple syrup. Sounds like a bonus. The nice thing about studying spice is that entire servings can be stuffed into pills so you can do placebo-controlled trials. A quarter teaspoon of black cumin powder a day led to significant improvements over placebo memory and tests of cognition within 9 weeks. Black sesame seeds, less than a teaspoon a day of ground black sesame seeds stuffed into capsules against placebo drops systolic blood pressures by about 8 points within a month if sustained. That alone drop your risk of stroke by about a quarter and is delicious. What else can we powder? Strawberries. Osteoarthritis patients were randomized to 2 ounces of freeze-dried strawberry powder versus a fake strawberry colored and flavored placebo powder. And compared to placebo, the real strawberries significantly decreased constant pain, intermittent pain, total knee pain, and improved disability and overall quality of life. The reason we care is because osteoarthritis is the single leading cause of disability among older men and women, yet how do we treat it? Well, acetaminophen, Tylenol, is considered the first-line treatment, but guess what? It doesn't work. Much better than a sugar pill, but at least it's not going to make matters worse, like other things we doctors have cooked up, like steroid injections, which actively worsen joint deterioration and don't even work better than placebo for pain relief. Or arthroscopic surgery, which can end up tripling our risk of ending up having to get a total knee replacement. I mean, so look, even if this strawberry study is some like total fluke, what's the worst that can happen? Tastier smoothies? And less than a quarter of a teaspoon of ground ginger can beat out placebo for joint pain. Researchers recommend that ginger should be recommended as a safe drug for these patients, but by drug, they're just talking about a couple pinches of the ground ginger you can buy at any store. There was even a study of topical ginger, at least when applied to the scrotum. Paper-thin slices of ginger applied over the inflamed testicles, and the researchers were on the ball. Healing nearly 3 times faster than the control group. All right. So far, I've touched on preserving your bones, bowels, bladder, hair, hormones, and joints, but preserving your mind is the largest chapter of the book, as dementia is one of our most pressing public health problems and most feared condition of later life. It's this common misconception that we have no control over whether or not we develop dementia as we age. But the good news is that although Alzheimer's may be incurable, at least it is preventable. There's this emerging consensus that what's good for our hearts is also good for our heads, because clogging of the arteries inside the brain with atherosclerotic plaque is thought to play a role in the development of Alzheimer's dementia. This is what our cerebral arteries should look like. Open, clean, allowing blood to flow. Right? This is what atherosclerosis in our head looks like. Clogged with cholesterol, closing off arteries, clamping down on blood flow. What kind of brain arteries do you want in your head? Too much cholesterol in the blood is unanimously recognized to be a risk factor for Alzheimer's dementia. Those with a total cholesterol of 225 or more, which is not that uncommon, may have nearly 25 times the odds of ending up with amyloid plaques in their brains 10 to 15 years later. Cholesterol explains how the Alzheimer's gene, ApoE4, ravages the brain. After all, what is ApoE? What is the Alzheimer's gene? It's the primary cholesterol carrier inside the brain. LDL cholesterol, in those with the bad gene variants of ApoE, averages about 40 points higher, but switch people to a diet lower in animal fat, and diet can trump genetics. This may explain the so-called Nigerian paradox, where they have among the highest rates of the Alzheimer's gene, but among the lowest rates of Alzheimer's disease. How is that possible? Genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. The paradox may be explained by their low cholesterol levels due presumably to their diet low in animal fat. Human beings may have evolved to maintain an LDL cholesterol of around 25, but the average in the Western world is like 120. No wonder the leading cause of death in high-income countries is heart disease, and guess what's killer number 2? Dementia. That helps explain why so-called Alzheimer's gene is the single most important gene when it comes to longevity too, which is good news, because even if we've been dealt some bad genetic cards, we still may be able to reshuffle the deck with diet. So, in terms of dietary prevention, for dietary guidelines for the prevention of Alzheimer's, we should center our diets around what? Vegetables, legumes, fruits, and whole grains. In other words, the dietary pillar of lifestyle medicine, whole food, plant-based nutrition. Or if that's too difficult for you, plants, and more plants. Any plants in particular? Note that the Loma Linda's Alzheimer's prevention program singles out berries and greens. When the cognition of hundreds of twins was followed for a decade, consuming the berry pigments in less than a quarter cup of blueberries every day or a single cup of strawberries was associated with slowed cognitive aging by 4 years. And nearly all randomized controlled trials of blueberry and cognition show improvements in at least one brain domain, perhaps because blueberry consumption can improve blood flow to certain critical regions within the brain. Now, the one study that flopped mixed the berries with milk. And we know the addition of milk prevents the artery protective effects of tea and prevents the bump in antioxidants in our bloodstream that we normally get after eating dark chocolate, or impairs the absorption of that autophagy activating compound in coffee. Okay, yeah, but what about mixing berries and cream? Well, the antioxidant capacity of blueberries isn't just impaired by milk. Check this out. Researchers found that the total antioxidant capacity in our bloodstream, measured 2 different ways, shoots up within an hour of consuming a cup and a half of blueberries with water and remains elevated 5 hours later. Now, with milk, I don't know, maybe we'd expect a little less of a bump, but instead, they ended up even worse than when they started. After eating a whole bowl of blueberries, they ended up with less antioxidant capacity within their body because they ate them with milk. This appears to be a casein effect, so you don't have to worry about plant milks. One of the reasons greens may be referred to as an anti-Alzheimer's plant is because dark green leafy vegetables can also improve blood flow in the brain. Randomize older adults to the greens pigments found in a couple of days of cooked kale and see significant improvements in complex attention, cognitive flexibility. Even a half a cup of kale's worth of the cruciferous compound sulforaphane leads to significant improvements in memory, processing speed. The rate of decline of those eating 1 to 2 servings of greens a day was equivalent to being 11 years younger. So berries can slow brain aging 4 years, greens by 11 years. Greens come up in chapter after chapter. What's the recommendation? for preventing age-related macular degeneration, our number one cause of blindness, or even treating it in its earliest stages, consume a diet high in dark green leafy vegetables. We're talking 2 to 3 servings a day, so eating greens at least every lunch, every supper, with bonus points for sneaking them into breakfast in like a green smoothie or something. In fact, blending greens can triple the bioavailability of a critical vision-protecting nutrient. The main reason greens make it into my anti-aging 8, though, is because of the nitrates. And a serving or 2 of cooked greens can slow our metabolic rate. For the same reason that a little shot of beet juice can allow free divers to hold their breath longer, it improves the efficiency of our mitochondria, the little power plants within our cells, allowing us to effectively extract more energy from each breath. And, the candle that burns half as bright burns twice as long. Normally, you only see this kind of this metabolic slowing with severe calorie restriction, but instead of walking around starving all the time, you can just eat a big salad. What else can greens do? Well, in the Harvard Nurses' Health Study, the consumption of leafy greens appears to protect against the development of frailty, and when put to the test in a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, the equivalent of about 2/3 of a cup of spinach led to a significant boost in muscle strength, muscle quality, and muscle mass in older men and women. A single cup of cooked greens worth of vegetable nitrates significantly boosted maximum power and velocity in the quads so much it was functionally equivalent to acutely reversing the effects of several decades of aging. Single cup of cooked greens. Popeye was right about the spinach, not the pipe smoking. Of course, when most people think about maintaining muscle mass as they age, they don't think about spinach, they think protein. But if you put together all the randomized controlled trials of adding extra protein to the diets of older men and women, you find no evidence that adding protein increases muscle mass or strength. Okay, yeah, but what if you have sarcopenia, excessive age-related muscle loss? Surely then protein helps, right? No! No significant effect on muscle strength, physical performance. What does work? Exercise. When it comes to age-related muscle loss, it's use it or lose it. But maybe exercise plus protein? No! Protein supplementation does not significantly augment the effects of strength training in older adults. In fact, one of my anti-aging 8 is protein restriction down to recommended levels. Why? Do longevity experts like Walter Longo encourage people to cut down on protein to live longer? Here's what Luigi Fontana wrote in his book. He's a director of another leading longevity research center. Excess protein won't mass your muscles, but it will accelerate aging. How do you boost the pro-longevity hormone FGF21? Dietary protein restriction. How do you suppress the age-accelerating hormone, IGF-1? You do it through dietary protein restriction. How do you suppress the so-called motor of aging enzyme mTOR? Dietary protein restriction. In fact, protein restriction down to recommended levels was the only intervention I could find that could slow all of the 11 aging pathways, which is good news, because it's easier to cut down on protein than it is to cut down on everything, walk around hungry all the time. And it may even be easier than that. Most or even all of the life-extending benefits of protein restriction may be due to restricting just particular problem amino acids like methionine. In that case, you can even keep your protein intake the same, but just swap sources from animal proteins like meat to plant protein sources like beans. So, in humans, methionine restriction can be achieved using a predominantly plant-based diet, which makes methionine restriction feasible as a life extension strategy. Of course, drug companies look at the same data and think, what pharmaceuticals can we develop to mimic these dietary interventions? Anything else to maintain muscle mass other than greens and machines? How about cocoa beans? Older men and women randomized to a single tablespoon of regular cocoa powder a day experienced a significant improvement in muscle mass, strength, and all 4 tests of physical performance. What else can cocoa do? Increase the circulation within our skin, boosting it like 70% within 2 hours, left with less than a tablespoon. Do that every day, and within 3 months you end up with significantly improved skin thickness, density, hydration. Keep it up for 6 months and you see an improvement in wrinkles. All by making your life just a little more chocolatey by adding some natural cocoa powder to your daily diet. I added to my oatmeal with some canned water-packed tart cherries for kind of a morning time chocolate-covered cherry sensation. What else can we do for our skin? Well, there are certainly other antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, glycotoxin-free foods. So look, when patients inquire about a diet that might contribute to younger-looking skin, evidence supports the recommendation to follow a whole food plant-based diet. But the most important thing to prevent skin aging is avoid the sun. Exposure to sunlight may account for 90% of visible skin aging. That's why dermatologists agree there's nothing more important we can do than to slow the signs of aging than to protect our skin from the sun. Check out this trucker who spent years getting more sun on the left side of his face through the driver's side window. So, the gold standard is considered to be the use of sunscreen during the daytime and so-called retinoids at night. They're talking about a prescription-only form of topical vitamin A known as all-trans-retinoic acid, or tretinoin, sold as Retin A. It has been widely proven to improve skin appearance. The only problem is that it may kill you. Topical tretinoin therapy and all-cause mortality, randomized controlled trial, had to be stopped early because so many more people were dying in the retinoic acid group compared to the placebo cream group. So what can we use? Topical niacinamide, also known as nicotinamide, and considered to one of the best studied skin cream ingredients for anti-aging, which is not actually saying very much, but it has been shown to reduce yellowing, wrinkling, blotchiness, and dark spots in aging facial skin. For example, significantly reducing crow's feet wrinkles around the eyes. This was a split face study in which 64% of the niacinamide side eye wrinkles had moderate or marked improvement compared to 0% on the placebo side eye. Topical vitamin C offers similar improvements over placebo in wrinkles, sallowness, skin tone. Unfortunately, vitamin C is unstable in creams, turning a kind of an unsightly brown when it oxidizes. So instead, the skincare industry uses more stable vitamin C esters or derivatives, but there's no evidence that they have comparable effects. But the good news is you can make your own. The 10% solution used in the study retails for a ridiculous $127 an ounce, but you can make a DIY solution more than 2,000 times cheaper by just buying ascorbic acid in bulk, mixing 3 grams into 30 grams of water for a cost of about a nickel per ounce. Drip a few drops in the palm of your hand, apply to your face, neck, upper chest, just don't get it into your eyes. And look, you can do the same thing with niacinamide, which is even more ridiculously priced. But you can buy it in bulk as well at a 5,000% discount. I could go on and on, the book certainly does, but let me close up by going back to the basics. From the Anti-Aging Journal Rejuvenation Research, finally, a regimen to extend human life expectancy. Was it some exotic new stem cell treatment or gene therapy? No. There's a reference to this Harvard analysis. More than 100,000 men and women were followed for decades, and just a few basic lifestyle behaviors appeared to translate into 12 to 14 years of extra lifespan for the average 50-year-old. So even at age 50, you still may be able to have an extra dozen years to your lifespan. Even at age 70, still appears to be about 10 years left on the table based on what you want to do. And if you clean up your life before age 50, nearly 18 years may be up for grabs based on simple common sense behaviors. I mean, that's the kind of life extension we see in some of these laboratory animal experiments, but after decades of research, hundreds of millions of dollars later, efforts to translate those research results into humans have largely been in vain. Yet here we are with human data suggesting dramatic life extensions available to all of us right here, right now. We already have that $1 trillion anti-aging pill biotech has been promising us. It just may have to be administered in the produce aisle and the gym. Turning back the clock, not with a drug or a DeLorean, but just by eating and living more healthfully. A midlife switch between the ages of 45 and 64 to even the barest of minimums. We're talking 5 daily servings of fruits and vegetables a day, walking 20 minutes a day, maintaining a healthy weight, and not smoking can result in a substantial reduction in mortality, even in the immediate future. We're talking a 40% lower risk of dying over the subsequent 4 years. The researchers conclude that making the necessary changes to adhere to a healthy lifestyle is extremely worthwhile, and middle age is certainly not too late to act. We have the power. Okay, so I was only able to get to about 100 studies. How Not to Age ended up with over 13,000 citations. So I was only able to cover about 1% of the book today. For the other 99%, there are books here. I'd be happy to sign. And all proceeds I receive from the sales of all my books are donated directly to charity. I just want you and your loved ones to enjoy the longest, healthiest life. All right, let's do some questions. The question was, should I be concerned about these heavy metals that have been found recently in cocoa products? Both Consumers Union, the nonprofit organization that publishes consumer reports, and Consumer Lab, which is like a for-profit third-party testing company, both of them found high levels of metals like cadmium in certain brands of cocoa. This doesn't matter if you eat cocoa, once in a while, have like a chocolate cake at a birthday party or something. But if you are eating cocoa like I recommend you eat cocoa, like a tablespoon a day to increase muscle mass and all these other wonderful things it does, well, then you really should try to get low toxin cocoa. And so, you can go online and look through your favorite brands and see. The one that I use is just the Target generic brand cocoa. Tested lowest. So that's the one I found. Unfortunately, I just got back from Europe. And I was like, just go to Target. And they're like, what? Evidently, they don't have Target over there. But you can find, they tested cocos for all over the world, and you can just find one you can buy that has low levels. Okay, yes?
Let's say I have 2 minutes with a patient.
Whoa.
What's the most important thing I can share with them to try to change their life?
The most important thing is you tell your HMO to give you more than 2 minutes with a patient. That's outrageous. 3 minutes. All right. Okay. So all you can really do is give them resources, right? And so, if only there was a really good website out there that really share books, documentaries. How many people saw this new documentary called You Are What You Eat on Netflix? Just came out in January. Yeah, wasn't that so good? The production value was good. It was fun. It was engaging. So it's like, go, check out this new documentary. It just came out. And just to get them to kind of get interested, and then you can share more, heavy-duty resources like books. Go to the local public library. Here's a list of books. Here's, the websites, on the risk. Because we just don't have the time. Now, if you're lucky enough to be working with some allied health professionals like dietitians, within your practice and be like, look, you need to see a dietitian. We'll go through your diet. We'll see what we can tweak, see what we can change, see what we can add. That's, if we have the ability to do that, that'd be great. But, in that short amount of time, it's just about getting them giving them a taste. But we really should not that's such a great opportunity. We have this real window of opportunity, especially if we're, diagnosing them with, high blood pressure or prediabetes or something. We have lab values, and we can say, well, here's your options. But, it's your body, your choice. Here's what, the pros and cons of, this route, this, pharmacological route, or there's some other, it's just, so many doctors have this kind of patronizing attitude that, oh, look, I can't even get my patients to stop smoking. There's no way they're going to eat healthy, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, oh, that's true. It could be true. But it's not your decision to make. It's the patient's decision. And, you have no idea if they're going to, jump on it and save their own lives, or if they're going to totally dismiss it. And so you just got to give them the option so that they have informed consent. They're able to make fully informed decisions. Everybody's responsible for the, predictable consequences of their actions. And so that's what our job is just share what those consequences are, and then they make up their own mind. Yes. It can be whatever kind of wheat germ you put in your mouth. Yes. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a great night. Here, all right, here, I'm actually gonna, whoa, hold on, da-da-da, okay, okay, where'd my little clicker go? Look, it comes from plants, what's the problem? Sorry to be Dr. Buzzkill, but, where'd I go here? Here we go. But alcohol appears to be humanity's 7th leading risk factor for death and disability. The safest level of drinking is none. But wait a second. What about the famous J curve, where light to moderate drinkers appear to have lower mortality rates than the teetotalers at 0 drinks per day? This appears to be an artifact of the systemic misclassification of former drinkers as if they were lifelong abstainers. This leads to what's called the sick quitter effect, where the reason a person may be a non-drinker is because drinking made them sick, thereby making kind of current drinkers look good in comparison. It's the same reason studies can find higher mortality rates among people who quit smoking compared to people who continue to smoke. Why? Because why'd they quit smoking? It's because they got really sick. So it's reverse causation. It's not that, it's not that abstention led to poor health, but rather that poor health led to abstention. So when we go back, and researchers have gone back and controlled for this error of misclassifying former drinkers as if they were lifelong abstainers, then the J curve disappears. No more apparent benefit from moderate drinking. In other words, compared to true abstainers, compared to those who really don't drink, the more alcohol, the more disease, with no apparent protection at low levels of consumption. Wait a second, even red wine? Unfortunately, interventional trials have shown that wine causes inflammation within hours of consumption, both red and white, significantly more than just drinking sugar water, and it gives you this surge of fat in your bloodstream that you don't get drinking de-alcoholized red wine, non-alcoholic wine. What about just taking supplements of that, red wine compound resveratrol? Oh, you mean the supplement found to triple the loss of brain tissue compared to placebo? Do you not like your brain? For those who want less brain, okay, but otherwise, no thank you. Who can tell me what the healthiest beverage is? Water. There we go. Okay, what else we got here? Anybody in the back? Back. Yes. So cacao powder and cacao powder is just kind of like a way to charge you more money for cocoa powder, basically. It's technically it's processed at a lower temperature, but there's no evidence that actually makes any difference. So eat whatever you want, or whatever's cheaper, or whatever has lower metal content. Yes, back over here. I'm just going to point this way, and the person. Anything? Anybody? Wow, this is like the. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Okay. Hi. First, thank you so much for being here and for your amazing.
Aw, thank you.
I would love your thoughts on the current trend of green powder drink.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically AG1.
Oh, I don't, what's in AG1? I don't know that particular.
It is a bajillion.
Does it got spirulina in it?
Yes.
Then don't take it. Oh, wait a second. And isn't Klamath Lake? Isn't that in Oregon? Or is that Washington? It's Oregon. What are you doing? Poisoning the world. This is ridiculous. Yeah. So that the blue-green algae. Harvested from the lake, as well as spirulina, is contaminated with these algal toxins, these microcystin toxins. I got a bunch of videos about it. So we should not be eating spirulina, blue-green algae. If you want a green powder, chlorella is probably the least harmful. But you could also take the money and just buy kale. Is this a kale bouquet? Whoa! Oh, thank you! Whoa! Oh, thank you! Look at this! How long has this been unrefrigerated for? All right. Don't do it. I've got lots of videos on coconut oil. Yeah. It's one of the rare sources of concentrated sources of saturated fats in the plant kingdom. So there's 3 tropical oils: coconut oil, palm kernel oil, and palm oil, found in lots of vegan junk food. We should really stay away from it. Increases our LDL cholesterol, leading risk factor not only for Alzheimer's, but number 1 killer of men and women. You should tell your oncologist to go to this great website. No, so up until they're just behind. So up until I think 2014, we had no human data on soy and breast cancer. So we had a lot of laboratory animal data, and soy does one thing for human breast cancers implanted in hamsters. And does another thing for human breast cancers implanted in another type of rodent. And it's like, well, wait a second, are we more like a hamsters? Are we more like this albino mice? Or So we didn't have any. And so I think it was reasonable to be like, look, we don't. Well, they should have said, well, we don't know. And so the official recommendation used to be, whatever your current soy consumption is, just continue. We don't have enough data to say increase or decrease it. Until 2014, when human data started coming in. We now have 5 trials involving thousands of breast cancer survivors, and you put them all together, and they all show that increasing soy consumption decreases breast cancer recurrence rates, right? Decreases the risk of breast coming back, and significantly improves, decreases mortality, breast cancer mortality, cancer-specific mortality. So now the official recommendation has turned to encouraging breast cancer patients to increase their consumption of soy foods because we see this associated with improved survival. All right. Yes. Oh, great question. What about these? What am I eating here? Oh, I get a shrug. Oh, thanks a lot. It's funny. It's so easy to poison me. Just like give me, oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for my kale bouquet. That is funny. So in How Not to Die, I talk about pesticides. And there's this interesting kind of modeling study that suggested if half of Americans ate a single more serving of fruits or vegetables, we would prevent every year 20,000 cases of cancer. Right? That's how powerful produce is. But because they're talking about conventional fruits and vegetables, pesticide-laden fruits and vegetables, the additional pesticide burden onto the American public, if we did that, would cause 10 cases of cancer. So overall, we would just prevent 19,990 cases of cancer. That gives you a sense of the tremendous benefit of fruits and vegetables versus the tiny bump in risk. You say, wait a second. Why accept any risk at all? Get all benefits, no risk by choosing organic. Great. But we should never let concern over pesticides prevent us from stuffing our faces with as many fruits and vegetables as possible. Yes.
Yeah, so one of the things that they tell you when you're trying to fight cancer is to not get glucose in your system, which means avoiding sugars and carbs of any kind, which by definition causes you to be eating more proteins and fats and a whole lot less carbs. And how does that square with all the beans and fruits that you're supposed to be eating?
So the question is, well, doesn't sugar feed cancer? So if you have cancer, shouldn't you want to kind of stay away from carbohydrates? I have a video about that. Cancer is actually really smart and can live off of ketones, and so you can eat a lot of fat. You can fuel the growth of certain types of cancer. So there's no good evidence that changing one's kind of average blood sugar levels has anything to do with cancer survival. And in fact, the very foods that are used to both prevent cancer and recommended for improving survival benefits for cancer from the American Institute for Cancer Research, World Cancer Research Fund, is, eat a plant-based diet. Yes. Oh, what kind? Well, give me the list. The question is, what about mushroom powder? What mushroom are we talking about? There's some mushrooms that you want to be careful about. In fact, someone told me, oh, you're going to Oregon? If someone gives you a cookie, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. Seriously, someone told me that. Okay. So mushrooms, if there was a Dr. Greger's baker's dozen, daily baker's dozen, if I could add one thing to the daily dozen, it would be mushrooms, because this new book unveiled two, these so-called longevity vitamins, one spermidine and one ergothioneine, which is found almost exclusively in the fungal kingdom. So if you're not eating mushrooms every day, or tempeh, which is kind of a fungal fermented soy food, you're basically not going to get it. And particularly the way we grow our crops. Plants used to be able to get it from these, fungal hyphae under the forest floor, and you can get a little in plants, but now the way we do agriculture, there's not a lot of that kind of cross-pollination. And so we really have to eat mushrooms to get it. And so if you want to get your mushrooms, frozen in a bag or fresh, or grow your own at home. That's what I've been doing ever since I read this book. I'm grow my oyster mushrooms at home. It's so cool. It's like grow sprouts. You can grow mushrooms, massive amounts of mushrooms, or powdered mushrooms. My only concern is something called chaga mushrooms. So chaga mushrooms are extremely high in oxalates, and so you have to be very careful, particularly if you have a history of kidney stones. So I'd actually just stay away from chaga mushroom powder. But like all the regular mushrooms, like, oh my God, porcini mushrooms actually have the highest levels of ergothioneine. Maybe one of the reasons why Mediterranean populations do so well. They actually have the highest levels of ergothioneine intake in the world. And so I get dried porcini mushrooms. And, you can get dried porcini powder mushrooms, delicious, I don't know. So that would be great. So I might do myself. I have not seen anything about lead in porcini mushrooms. Where? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's a great... So the question was about, there's all these studies saying that, meat consumption is not just associated with all sorts of bad outcomes, but you randomize people to increase your meat consumption, all sorts of bad things happen. But that's like regular meat. That's like, retail, supermarket meat. What about, something like venison or wild game, which has much lower levels of saturated fat, which is kind of our primary concern. So the only studies that have actually been done to put it to the test were studies done in Australia using kind of their venison, kangaroo meat. And so if you randomize people to eat kangaroo meat or to eat just regular meat from the supermarket, you get significantly less inflammation over the next a few hours after consumption eating kangaroo meat than you get eating regular meat. So that's definitely better. But it's like, why eat something that causes any inflammation at all? If instead you had eaten some beans or something, that actually has an immediate anti-inflammatory effect. Looking at systemic inflammatory markers like IL-6 and interleukins and the C-reactive protein. And so, better, but you can get better still. And there's certainly a concern about lead contamination of, kind of wild harvested venison. But something like elk moose, like 4% calories from fat. So that's where we can actually, so that would be less harmful than eating kind of, conventional, like chicken these days. It used to be 2% calories from fat, like 100 years ago. Now it's 20% calories from fat. More fat than protein in chicken, just because we so genetically manipulated them to be nice and juicy. But unfortunately, that juiciness is the saturated fat that's increasing our risk of dying. And the chickens don't like it either, I hear. Oh, so what's the healthiest sweetener? So I actually have concerns about stevia as well as monk fruit, and then all the artificial sweeteners, all the low-calorie sweeteners. And I've got videos on those, talks about why metabolically these high-intensity sweeteners with very low calories kind of fool our brain into not being very happy and what the consequences are for our long-term blood sugar control, et cetera, et cetera. So you can check those out. The bottom line, best sweetener, healthiest sweetener, there we go, dates. So date powder. You can get powdered dates. Now, normally when you get date powder, you get what's called date sugar, which is just pulverized dried dates, but it's kind of granular and it gets kind of sludgy in coffee or something. So if you want a sweetener for a hot beverage, you actually get date powder. It kind of looks like confectioner sugar. It's powdered super. In fact, you open up the thing, you get this big puff of dust. And so it's powdered date, but it's just a one ingredient date, nothing taken away, has all the fiber. So you're just adding a whole food. And in fact, so, you can take around little, packets of date powder if you want to sweeten stuff. And you can cook with it. You can do anything you want with it. Yeah. So that's actually better than date syrup. Date syrup is actually pretty processed. You look at the ingredients, it's like, oh, it's just dates. What's the problem? Well, yeah, but then you look at the fiber content, you're like, wait a second. Dates started out with this much fiber, and this date syrup only has this much fiber, meaning they must have, there must be some kind of sieving process, where there's some kind of filtration process where they really removed a lot of that nutrition. Yes?
What's the deal with bananas?
Ha! Thank you very much, everybody. Fascinating to study. So I did a webinar about it. You can watch the webinar. I mean, it's such this long, interesting, nerdy deep dive. But for just the bottom line, by mixing bananas with other foods, other healthy foods, other polyphenol-rich foods like berries and cocoa and all these other wonderful things, it impairs their bioavailability. Kind of like the milk effect, where it kind of gloms onto these polyphenols. It actually doesn't glom on, actually it destroys them. So such that if you mix bananas, you make a smoothie. Let's make a chocolate smoothie because we're eating cocoa powder every day. And you mix bananas, like a nice frozen banana with some cocoa powder or something. Then in your bloodstream, there will be 30% less of the cocoa flavanols, which are responsible for the benefits, in your bloodstream if you added banana versus the same amount of cocoa powder without the banana, because some of it's destroyed. And so some people are like, fine, I'll just add, more cocoa powder. Okay, great. But if you're going to add more cocoa powder, and you didn't add the banana, you'd still get a lot more. So, whatever you want to do. Now, now some people, so I tell people, well, use, mango or you can use frozen sweet potato and have the same kind of creaminess. And people are like, no, I want my banana. Okay, if you microwave your banana, you destroy the enzyme that destroys the polyphenols, so you can microwave the banana, and I talk about the time, blah, 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 how long you microwave, and then you put it in the freezer. Now it's benign, it doesn't affect your berries at all. But it's like, oh, come on, who's microwaving their bananas? But if you love your bananas, also freeze-drying. Freeze-dried bananas aren't a problem either. That's funny. Yes? Oh, honey's sugar, like maple syrup is sugar, like corn syrup is sugar, like sugar is sugar. And so we should try to minimize our intake of these added sugars in our diet, as well as added salt, added fat. We try to get all of our macronutrients, our carbs, our protein, our fats from whole food sources. Yes?
What's your favorite plant-based milk?
Oh! Well, the healthiest plant-based milk is unsweetened soy. In fact, nothing really even comes close. It's the least processed, has the most nutrition, and the only plant milk that I drink. Yes? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Say, wait a second. Oh, my God, I'm vegan. My blood pressure is awesome. I blow the minds of my physicians every time I get tested. What? I don't have to worry about salt, do I? Yes, you do. So that is just one of many deleterious effects excess sodium intake has on the body. One, it increases high blood pressure, which is nothing to be trifled with, but it also has deleterious effects on artery function and other things like increasing inflammation. So like you put asthmatics on a low sodium diet and cuts down their asthma attacks because it decreases inflammation in the body. All sorts of other things. We really do, as much as salt is salty and delicious, we really need to decrease our intake. But oh my God, it's so easy. Switch from sodium salt to potassium salt. Boom! Boom! Yeah.
My sister struggles with narcolepsy. Do you have any food recommendations to stabilize therapy?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever looked into it. But I will now, thanks to that question. The question was about narcolepsy and food. I don't think I've ever looked into it. So there's no videos on it, but I will look. And if there is anything you can do about it, I'll make a video about it. Thank you. And you'll be watching the video will come up and be like, that was because of me. And it's true. Whoa, okay, you're next. Hold on. What is this? Like, this is the softballiest question I've ever gotten. What kind of... Okay, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Okay, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes. Oh, hold on, yes. What about tea? What about green tea and specifically matcha tea? The healthiest beverages are water and tea. Increasing tea consumption 3 cups a day decreases the risk of premature death from all causes by 24%. Remember the coffee? Drink 3 cups of coffee and your risk of death goes down 13%. Drink 3 cups of green tea, your risk of death goes down 24%. And it's from a totally different mechanism. So presumably they'd be additive. So 3 cups of coffee in the morning, then switch to tea. That's what I do. All right. So we're talking about both black and green tea, though green tea does have a slight advantage. Part of this protection is due to the lower risk of dying from pneumonia, one of our leading causes of death. We have 5 randomized controlled trials showing those randomized to green tea about a third less likely to come down with the flu, for example, so it's an immune booster. Within just a single hour of drinking green tea, we can significantly cut down on the rate of DNA damage within our cells because green tea significantly boosts the activity of a DNA repair enzyme in our body that fixes DNA damage literally within an hour. And within a month, drinking 2 small daily cups of green tea can improve DNA resistance to free radical damage in the first place, indicating that green tea has significant genoprotective or DNA protecting effects. Though the question was specifically about matcha tea, which is just powdered green tea. So you take a green tea leaf and instead of just dunking in water and throwing it out, I mean that's like making collard greens, boiling collard greens, and then throwing the greens out. And just drinking the water. Now, certainly there's some nutrition leached into that water. It's green, smells a little collardy. But what do? You just threw out all that nutrition. So that's what so instead of making green tea and throwing out the leaves, how about we just take the green tea, we powder it, and we actually eat the green tea whole. You can also throw regular green tea leaves into a smoothie or something. So it's actually better. So matcha is the best way to get green tea with one caveat. Only recently did China get rid of leaded gasoline. And so depending on how far the plant is on the tea plantation from the highway, have a lot of lead in the soil. But the nice thing is that the lead does not leach from the leaves into hot water. So you can take Chinese green tea, put it into hot water, throw away the leaves, and there's no lead in the tea. But if you actually eat the tea leaves, like matcha, or throw them into a smoothie, then we really should not be using tea sourced from China. Instead, we should get green tea from Japan. So if you're doing matcha or adding green tea leaves into your smoothie on a regular basis, Japanese-sourced green tea is the way to go. And we're out of time because I want to sign a lot of books. So I'll see everybody out there. Thank you so much.
Give it up one more time for Dr. Michael Greger. I like that guy. We're so lucky to have him here in our community. One of the traditional teachings from my background is that when you learn something new, you share it with others. You integrate it into your life, but you also share it with others. We're not to be stingy with our knowledge. So you all got so much today. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here tonight. I have a couple of reminders for you. We are inviting you to check out our partner tables. We have amazing partners represented here tonight that are doing incredible work in the community. Please check out those tables. Buy raffle tickets. Our volunteers have worked really hard to curate beautiful raffle baskets. Please support that work and get yourself a couple raffle tickets. The book signing will start on this side of the platform outside in the lobby. And we really ask you to keep it brief so we can get through as many people as possible. And finally, use tonight as your kickoff for the 2024 Wellbeing Challenge. You started off on a good foot. If you didn't register with the QR code, do it at the Thrive Umpqua table, and let this be the start of a wonderful 2024 where you are invested in well-being. Thank you to Thrive Umpqua for making the healthy choice the easy choice, to UCC Nursing, the ROSEBURG Residency Program, and to all of you for being here tonight. We look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great evening.